On August 7th, 2025, Epik High, which is a Korean hip-hop trio group, uploaded a video to their official YouTube channel, Epik High, titled, "Why Don't You Send Me the Gold Button?" The first half of the video showed them visiting YouTube's headquarters to collect their Gold Creator Award for hitting 1 million subscribers. So congratulations for that. But the second half of the video, that's where things took an unexpected turn. After leaving YouTube headquarters, the three members, Tablo, Mithra and DJ Tukutz, headed for Stanford University, which is Tablo's alma mater. And this wasn't just a sightseeing trip. This was something that Tukutz and Mithra had planned specifically to help their friend Tablo close a wound and trauma that had been open for 15 years. In the car, when his members jokingly brought up the academic fraud controversy, Tablo laughed and said, "I really went there. How many times do I have to prove it?" Now, if you have followed Korean internet culture for a while, you know exactly what that line was about. And if you haven't, well, that takes us into one of the darkest episodes in Korean online history. It's known as the Tajinyo incident, and this wasn't just a celebrity rumor. Okay? It became such a national storm that prosecutors got involved, and it was discussed at the Blue House, and even the president had to step in. So today, we're gonna go back, way back, and look at how a tiny online rumor about Tablo's Stanford degree snowballed into the worst witch hunt in Korean internet history. And this is, spoiler alert, a story about jealousy, misinformation, and organized cyberbullying that still hasn't completely gone away, even 15 years later. All right, so back in the early 2010s, there was something called anti-cafes, which is an online communities within the Naver platform dedicated to hating on specific celebrities. And these were everywhere in Korea. Among them, there was one so notorious that even people who don't know K-pop still remember its name, Tajinyo, which is short for "We demand the truth from Tablo." 타블로에게 진실을 요구합니다. And Tajinyo wasn't just about throwing insults. It was very organized, relentless, and calculated in the way that it went after Tablo. Now, Epik High's Tablo at the time was one of Korea's most recognized rappers. As part of Epik High, he had seen huge commercial success, and thanks to variety show appearances, such as X-Men, 야심만만, 상상 Plus, and even the sitcom Non-Stop, he had become a household name. His public image, by his own account that he later told himself, it was straightforward, a little arrogant, and tagged with the label of genius. Now, the media painted him as a perfect son, 엄친아, smart, successful, and at the time considered attractive. And it wasn't all hype. He had really graduated from Stanford University, one of the most prestigious schools in the world. And he was famous and popular because of that. But in 2007, Korea was rocked by the well-known professor Shin Jung-a's academic fraud scandal. And suddenly, verifying celebrity degrees became a national pastime. And naturally, suspicion started to creep toward Tablo as well. That was a tiny spark of doubt. Eventually, that caught fire, and then it became an inferno. To be clear, this wasn't just a petty rumor. Like I said, it got so big that prosecutors opened a formal investigation, and the controversy was even brought up during the high-level Blue House meetings. And that's how much public attention it drew and how seriously it was being treated. Now, this all started with one man. Around the time of the 신정아 scandal that I briefly mentioned just now, this man began obsessively posting claims that Tablo's name didn't appear on Stanford's list of graduates. And he searched for Daniel Armand Lee, which Tablo had once said was his English name. And when nothing came up, he declared that Tablo must be lying. The problem was that Daniel Armand Lee was a pen name. Tablo's legal name is Daniel Sun-ung Lee. And the rumor was wrong from day one, but that didn't stop it. Over the next 3 years, the claim spread across forums, blogs, and comment sections. Eventually, it caught the attention of one of Korea's most infamous trolls, known online as What Becomes. And this was a guy who spent his days posting crude comments about female celebrities, making up fake stories about dating actresses, and generally being a professional troll online. And one day, this guy, What Becomes, posted a comment about Tablo that got 5,800 views, over 5,000 views, and that was it. He had found his gold mine, and from then on, he targeted Tablo exclusively, spreading the academic fraud rumor as widely as possible. It was like a YouTuber discovering a viral niche and refusing to upload anything else. Now, Epik High's agency, Ulim Entertainment, at the time, eventually sent him a warning and a notice of legal action. But What Becomes wasn't intimidated, partly because he was an American citizen living in the US, and he liked to brag about it as if it made him untouchable. And instead of backing down, he made the email public, gaining even more attention, the email from Ulim Entertainment. And that's when one of his fans, this troll, What Becomes fans, who went by the internet name Love, decided to create an online community, Neighbor Cafe, dedicated to exposing Tablo. Out of loyalty to What Becomes, they set the cafe's URL to What Hero and invited him to be the manager. The cafe's official name, like I said, We Demand the Truth from Tablo. 타블로에게 진실을 요구합니다. aka Tajinyo. Now from there, things got organized. Members posted analysis of Tablo's TV appearances, twisting his words into evidence, and restricted the cafe, the online community, so only registered members could see posts. Now, curiosity drove signups through the roof, like 50,000 members in 1 month and over 200,000 in 5 months. And their main argument was that Tablo was avoiding proving himself on the spot. Like, there was a playful exchange on the variety show Star Goldenbell, where someone joked, I think it was an MC, bring us your diploma and prove that you're a Stanford graduate. And Tablo laughed and said that costs money and it's expensive. And this was held up as proof that Tablo had something to hide. They also twisted harmless anecdotes into wild accusations, like claiming he had attacked Chelsea Clinton based on a completely different story. Now, in other words, over time, all the tall tales that Tablo had told on variety shows started getting fact-checked by Tajinyo, and that fed into the growing suspicion that his academic background might be fake, too. Now, the thing about Tablo is, he has this wild imagination, and a skill for spinning creative, engaging stories, and the kind of poker face that lets him deliver something completely made up, or at least heavily exaggerated without blinking. And in hip hop and songwriting, that's an incredible strength, right? The problem was, he brought that same gift for outrageous storytelling into variety shows, where he would drop these fascinating, over the top anecdotes just for laughs. And Tablo has since said on YouTube and interviews that these were jokes meant to entertain people. But back then, the Korean public didn't really have a concept of that kind of gimmick or playful exaggeration, and the broadcasting world didn't bother to explain it either. So, a lot of viewers simply took those stories at face value. And in that environment, many of the lighthearted tall tales that had once been part of Epik High and Tablo's charm became quote-unquote evidence for Tajinyo to tear apart, and that spark caught fire. And from there, the accusations began to snowball. And when rumors like this reach a certain size, there's only one way to confront them, which is with hard proof, which is exactly what Tablo tried to do next. Tablo responded by presenting solid proof, like his diploma, transcripts, and admission documents. But confirmation bias had already taken root. No matter what evidence he showed, Tajinyo members dismissed it as fake and immediately moved the goalpost. If you can't prove that, then show us your dormitory records. Prove that? Then give us your thesis. Oh, you prove that? Then hand over your immigration documents. And this cycle repeated again and again until Tablo had submitted 170 different documents in total. 170 different documents. And each time he cleared one hurdle, they built another one. Not to find the truth, but to keep the accusation alive. And when you've run out of documents to attack, there's only one place left to go if you are determined to destroy someone. You go after the people around them. So they turned their focus to Tablo's family, harassing them and nitpicking the most absurd details. And slowly, the Korean public mood, began to tilt in Tajinyo's favor until one TV program changed everything. On October 1st, 2010, MBC, which is one of the major Korean broadcast stations in Korea, aired Tablo Goes to Stanford. It was a program called Tablo 스탠포드에 가다. And despite being a late-night program, it pulled an impressive 12.3% national rating. Viewers saw Tablo walk across campus, meet with professors, point out his photo in the yearbook, and even request his transcripts in person from the registrar's office. In other words, this was the kind of proof that no one could fake. Now, Tajinyo's leader, what becomes, had once boasted that he would go to Stanford with Tablo. But when the producers, NBC producers, actually invited him, he refused, citing, check this out, an assassination risk. Now, the broadcast, like I said, was meant to be the end of the controversy. For many, it was. But for the hardliners inside the Tajinyo Neighbor Cafe community, it was just another challenge. They accused NBC of staging everything, claimed the professors were actors, and doubled down on their conspiracy theories. And by this point, the story wasn't about finding the truth anymore. It was about defending a belief at all costs. And Tajinyo claimed the verification still wasn't enough. They pointed to two supposed gaps in the evidence. The first was that Tobias Wolff, the professor famously known for discouraging Tablo from, who was his student at the time, from returning to Korea during his studies. And initially, he didn't recognize Tablo when approached by a Korean reporter. Now, Tajinyo latched onto that moment as proof that he wasn't really Wolf's student. But the reality was very different. Wolf later confirmed multiple times that it was indeed Tablo, publicly stating that the musician was the same Daniel Sunung Lee who had studied in Stanford's English department for 3.5 semesters and had even won an award for his short story, Rats. He didn't just say this verbally, he signed an official Stanford letter affirming it. And despite this, Tajinyo kept insisting that Wolf didn't remember him, making it one of their most notorious examples of twisting facts. The second was that a photo of Tablo working part-time at a campus sandwich shop wasn't enough to prove his enrollment. And this was also absurd. Alongside Wolf, other professors like Ricks, as well as Thomas, the university registrar, all strongly affirmed Tablo's status as a legitimate Stanford student and even verified his grades. Multiple former classmates also confirmed seeing him on campus during those years. And while no single testimony may be perfect in isolation, the combined weight of all these independent confirmations left virtually no doubt, both about Daniel Sunung Lee's enrollment and the fact that he was a musician known as Tablo. But guess what? Tajinyo still wasn't done. They then demanded his immigration records, claiming that during his Stanford years, he had been working in Korea as both an academy instructor and a musician. And they dug up an old TV anecdote where Tablo joked about losing his academy teaching job after being filmed cheering on top of a car during the 2002 Korean World Cup. And since 2002 fell during his master's program, and since they found an article stating that Epik High was formed in 2001, they argued this meant he must have been living in Korea, not attending Stanford. Police, however, reviewed his immigration records and found no discrepancies. Every trip to Korea had taken place during official school breaks, and this was a major blow to Tajinyo's claims. When that wasn't enough, they pushed the absurdity even further during trial, demanding not only Tablo's high school immigration records, but also his mother's immigration records. It was like a desperate attempt to move the goalpost every time actual evidence disproved them. Now, by this time, public opinion flipped. There was a counter neighbor cafe, We Demand the Truth from What Becomes, that sprang up. And petitions to shut down Tajinyo gained tractions. Personal details about What Becomes the troll emerged, revealing that he had registered his account under the ID number of a friend in prison. So his account was suspended, Tajinyo was closed, and several members were indicted. In interviews, some Tajinyo members admitted that the real reason for their resentment was jealousy. They hated that someone could rap, be famous, and still graduate from Stanford when they have to take all-nighters studying to get good grades. And that's when the fight moved from the court of public opinion into an actual courtroom. Once the prosecutors got involved, What Becomes gave an interview that sounded almost like he was asking for leniency, and then promptly disappeared from public view. Meanwhile, several other members continued to face legal proceedings for years. Tablo's side filed complaints against roughly 20 people, with around 10 of them actually summoned to court. About half of these defendants were supported by Tajinyo during the trial. Now, they disputed the credibility of the evidence Tablo had submitted and asked that his academic documents be provided through a U.S. federal court. The Korean judge, accepted this request. The verdict hearing was originally scheduled for December 2011, but the documents never arrived from the US, forcing a delay into March 2012. The court warned that if the documents still didn't arrive by then, the trial would be reassigned to a different judge due to the court's regular personnel changes. When nothing came in, the hearing was postponed again to May 18th, 2012, until finally, at the end of April, the paperwork arrived. At the May 18th hearing, Tablo said, "What I want isn't punishment. It's an authoritative declaration from the judiciary that the truth is the truth." He withdrew his complaints against two defendants, citing the lower severity of their defamation and the fact that they hadn't directly harmed his family. It was a remarkably generous move, though. Predictably, some critics spun it as Tablo backing up because he had something to hide. And true to form, Tajinyo members took it as a victory in their own minds. Regardless, the court stated that all the documents Tajinyo had requested had arrived, and the situation was favorable to Tablo. On June 8, 2012, the prosecution sought prison sentences of up to 2 years and 6 months. And on July 6th, the court sentences 3 of the core members, those who had continued insisting on the degree forgery claim until the end, to 10 months in prison. 6 others received suspended sentences of 8 to 10 months, each with 2 years probation. The defendants appealed, and Tablo informed the court he then wanted them punished. On October 10th, the appeals of 7 of the 8 convicted members were rejected. The remaining one had their sentence reduced to probation, but was ordered to read 2 books recommended by the court and submit a written report. One particularly hardline member of Tajinyo took the case all the way to the Supreme Court, but ultimately lost and received a confirmed prison sentence. In the end, Tablo took an unflinchingly tough stance at the end. Of the 11 defendants, only 2 were shown leniency, while 9 received final guilty verdicts, and 3 of those served actual prison time. But the damage to Tablo was already done. His father passed away during the drawn-out trial, and his mother's salon closed. His brother quit his teaching job, and Tablo himself was blacklisted from TV and radio, losing income just as his daughter, Haru, was born. And while most of the convicted Tajinyo members eventually faded from public view, the man who started it all, what becomes, never stopped. Despite never producing verifiable proof, he refused every on-camera invitation to defend his accusations, once claiming, like I said, assassination risk as his excuse. And when the legal crackdown came, he gave a vaguely apologetic interview to Korean American media, then vanished, protected from extradition by his U.S. citizenship, leaving his followers to face trial alone. And over the years, this guy, what becomes, resurfaced to create new Tajinyo-like communities, expanding his attacks to other celebrities and politicians, recycling the same academic forgery conspiracy. And he mixed in like political rants, anti-Korean remarks, and these boast about his wealth and family, many of which were proven false. And even as, age slowed him in the 2020s. So but when this whole controversy began, it was known that he was in his 50s, and now he must be in his 60s or 70s. But he never slowed down. To this day, you can find Tajinyo-style comments under Tablo-related videos carrying his signature talking points. And that's the real danger here. And some people will never accept the truth, no matter how much evidence you show them. And for them, common sense means whatever fits their narrative. And once that mindset takes root, it doesn't just ruin reputations, it destroys lives. So confirmation bias, that is something that I've been mentioning over and over again on my channels. And that's why the Tajinyo scandal is still remembered as the worst case of cyberbullying in Korean history. It's one where no amount of proof could satisfy people who had already decided what truth meant to them. And for Tablo, it wasn't just an internet drama. It was years of public suspicion, personal loss, and having to relive the same accusation over and over again. Which is why what happened recently mattered so much. Like I said in the very beginning, in the Epik High video on Epik High's YouTube channel, after arriving at Stanford, the three of them made their way to a tree on campus, the exact same spot where 15 years ago, Tablo had broken down in tears while filming the NBC documentary Tablo Goes to Stanford. And back then, it was a moment of exhaustion and frustration. This time, DJ Tukutz had even brought an outfit matching what Tablo wore in that scene, just so they could recreate the photo. And only now, with a smile instead of tears. And they took the picture side by side, just like before. But the difference was everything. The grin on Tablo's face, the easy laughter, and the long hug between the three friends. And you could see it in his expression. The weight was very much lighter. I mean, sure, the scars from something like Tajinyo don't disappear completely. But moments like this, they chip away at the shadow, and they replace an old memory with a better one. And maybe for Tablo, that day on campus wasn't just about proving he had been there. It was about finally letting himself be there without the noise and the pain. And before wrapping up, I should say it here. Part of the reason this story hits me so hard to this day is because I have always liked Epik High and Tablo. For many international fans, Epik High became known thanks to BTS. RM and Suga especially have openly said how much Epik High influenced them. And because of that connection, their overseas fan base exploded. Epik High's overseas fan base exploded and they toured worldwide. And for me, it's kind of the other way around. I liked Epik High and especially Tablo first. That's part of why I like BTS too, because the musical roots are the same. And I've been an Epik High fan since I was young. So the Tajinyo incident wasn't just some celebrity scandal to me. It was very personal. Back then, I was still a student and I was powerless to do anything. All I could do was search Tablo's name online on Naver or something on Google almost every day just to check if he was okay. And that was it. That was the only thing I could do. And for a long time, there was nothing. No music, no news, no updates. It wasn't until years later when Tablo signed with YG Entertainment and made what felt like a miracle comeback that the silence finally broke. So watching him now, laughing with his friends in the exact same spot where he once cried, turning one of his worst memories into a lighthearted one, it's not just closure for him. In a way, it's a closure for his fans and me as well. 15 years ago, a rumor tried to define his life. And today, surrounded by people who care about him, he got to rewrite that chapter. And this time, the photo tells a real story. So here's what I want to ask you before really closing this video. When proof is laid out in front of us, a real verifiable proof, why do some people still choose to believe the opposite? And do you think it's pride or stubbornness? Or is it that for some people, letting go of a grudge means letting go of the only thing that gives them purpose? And on the flip side, have you ever had a moment where someone helped you rewrite a painful memory the way Tukutz and Mithra did for Tablo? and what did that moment mean to you? So let me know in the comments, and maybe, just maybe, we can all take one step forward, making sure stories like Tajinyo never happen again. Alright? Thank you. Peace and love. Bye-bye.